Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fifth Dimension live video podcast with your co host, Matthew J. Haas, and of course, with me, my partner, my other co host, Mr. Dave Schumacher. Dave, what's going on, buddy?
Hey Matt, how you doing? Welcome to another episode of the Fifth Dimension. Good to see you. Good to talk to everybody again. And I am broadcasting not just the normal remote from Illinois, but I am broadcasting from Orlando, Florida today. So nice and warm and ready to go.
Sounds good. I wish I was in much warmer weather.
Come on down. We'll send the company
I'm
jet for you.
jealous. I'm jealous. And then
I'll send
tonight, we
I'll send the Fifth Dimension company jet for you.
that'd be nice. Um, Yeah, we're expecting 40 to 50 mile an hour gusts, and temperature's gonna drop to like 30, and with the wind is gonna feel like it's more in the 20s.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. When I left today, the winds were like 30 or 40 sustained and 50 to 60 gusts. So
yeah.
enjoy that weather. Sending it your way with love.
So, well, as always, in the beginning of the show, I'd like to let our listeners know how they can contact us. They have questions for the host, whether it be me or Dave. We welcome all kinds of listeners and viewers and we welcome all kinds of questions. We hope we can provide the answers. We have a chat room. If you go to our YouTube channel and you're watching us live, next to that big video box that you're watching, next to it is a decent chat room. So if you want to point your questions there, that's fine. You can also email us at the Fifth Dimension Radio Show at gmail.com. You can also ask us questions on Facebook. If you go to the Fifth Dimension Live Video Podcast on Facebook, I believe you can get us there. I think we have a link on our profile on YouTube channel as well as linking to our Facebook page.
Yep.
Um, so please, feel free. You can call in that way too. Fifth Dimension Fifth Dimension Radio Show at gmail.com is how you call in. Just go to Google Hangouts if you have a Google account, Gmail account. You can just go to Google Hangouts and give us a ring that way. Um, I think that's how you'll be able to find us. We haven't quite got a caller in as far as an outside call. So if you want to be the first, be the first. Be my guest.
Maybe Jen will try it. I think she was going to try to watch tonight
Okay. All right.
from Illinois. We'll see if it works if she
Yeah.
gets around to trying it.
Oh, she's
So
watching. Hey, Jen. So, all right. So we have a really interesting topic. If Dave doesn't mind, I'm gonna go ahead with the opening statement of the show.
go ahead.
All right. So calling all ghost hunters is what I titled the episode. It's episode number 8. So the topic is what is the difference or differences between a ghost hunter, paranormal investigator, and parapsychologist? The terminology for all three is bounced around like I mean, it gets bounced around like quite a bit. They're flashy words. People love to use flashy words to describe an importance or to make them feel important. So they give themselves titles. But I feel there is a difference between the three, between a ghost hunter, between a paranormal investigator, and a parapsychologist. I think there's a big difference between all three, and I think Dave would agree with me with that one because especially with the parapsychologist, you have to have a pretty mighty good background to back up calling yourself a parapsychologist. One, having a degree in psychology would be beneficial, and to have yourself some good credentials there. You have to have a doctorate, PhD, and believe me, that's 4 years and plus of college and all sorts of heavy degrees. You have to have a master's, a doctorate, all that good stuff in order to get involved in having a psychology degree or a parapsychology degree. And it's very rare to actually get a degree in parapsychology because it's far few in between of finding universities that offer a degree in parapsychology. Very few people have one, such as Lloyd Auerbach. Barry Taff, I believe, has a degree in parapsychology. Dr. Barry Taff, of course, I'm naming. So I'll leave that opening statement right there. I think I did pretty good with that as far as giving a segue to our topic. Dave, would you agree with me? Is there a big difference between the three?
Yeah, there is a big difference between the three, and of course, you hit on a couple of the key points. And I think it's a continuum. You have kind of at the one end, the I wouldn't say, well, I guess entry level ghost hunter, and then it moves into paranormal investigator, and then you get into parapsychology. And when Jen and I wrote about this in our book years ago, that investigating the haunted, ghost hunting, taken to the next level. And over 10 years ago, we wrote that book and started pondering this question as well. And there seemed to be a real shift from ghost hunters to paranormal investigators. It seemed like there was a difference. And then there's the parapsychologist, but now it almost seems like all the people in the field are trying to shift a little bit. I probably see more people calling themselves paranormal investigators than ghost hunters recently. And the one thing I've seen that's a little disturbing is some people referring to themselves as parapsychologists, and they're not. They
Yeah,
have no academic training, they
no
have no
credentials.
degree, they
Yeah,
have nothing besides they said they've read a lot and keep up with the field. Well, that doesn't technically make you a parapsychologist. So I think there's a shift. It's almost like people are looking for respect and credibility, which everybody wants. And by using a word that may be a little higher up on the value poll and the credential, uh, to make them look better with credentials, they're tending to use words that may or may not describe and properly label what they really are. So we can get into some of the details as I see them, the differences between ghost hunter, paranormal investigator, and parapsychologist, and kind of see where it goes. So
yeah,
yeah, I think it's a good topic. It's been quite a while since I've thought about it and looked at it, but I think this will be a good time to revisit it. Lots of things have changed
yeah,
um,
sure.
from all those years. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, if you guys feel there's definitely a difference between all three that we're talking about on tonight's show, again, feel free to call in Fifth Dimension Radio Show at
Mm-hmm.
gmail.com. If you'd like to call in and just let us give us your thoughts on what we're talking about would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I kind of like how you put it, Dave, when you said Ghost Hunter is kind of like an entry level way of starting out. And um, the way I see it is I was okay with being called a ghost hunter in the beginning, but I've advanced myself like as far as experience, because I've been investigating the paranormal for so long now. You know, I could say I these days now I'm modifying my own equipment. I have a really good grasp for the scientific method and applying that stuff to paranormal investigations using critical thinking, how to really do proper research as far as investigating cases and, different aspects of that. Um, Now I get insulted on a personal level if I get called a ghost hunter, just because I feel I'm a little more step up from that. But um, I feel that ghost hunters are more out there, like you say, on an entry level, getting their foot around, just trying to get the
Mm-hmm.
feel of what it's about. Maybe more thrill seekers than anything, but won't go any further other than being a thrill seeker, or just seeking out an experience or an explanation as to those experiences. Maybe these type of people go to ghost tours, public ghost hunts, things of that nature. I don't think they go anything past further than that. Then I think it would be like the mid level, which would be paranormal investigator, would be beyond, ghost hunter. But I prefer to be called a paranormal investigator myself personally, just
Mm-hmm.
because of my experience level and where I'm at, with my experience is all I'm pretty much saying.
Yeah, the other thing with ghost hunter, I think if you look up just the definition of hunt, it's like to seek, to go after, to try to catch. It's almost like you're going after your prey. To me, that just that assumes that ghosts exist. So you're out there to hunt them, and I've seen that with a lot of the literature that looks at the differences or what ghost hunters tend to say they are, and really they're out there to prove that ghosts exist. And in their mind, at least as far as I've seen, they think ghosts exist. They firmly believe that ghosts exist. So they're out there trying to hunt for them. I don't know, not so much capture them to do whatever, but to gather information that proves that they exist. And as you said, a lot of them, it's more of a hobby. It's kind of, oh, it's fun. Let's go out and go to some public places. Let's try to
Hmm.
find some evidence. Let's take some pictures. Let's do some EVPs. Let's walk around with the EMF meter. I think a lot of what they learn and what they do, they get from TV.
Sure.
And there might be a little bit of reading there, but nothing too major. I mean, back in the day, people used to read a lot and do a lot with them. Things like the American Ghost Society and some of the other groups. But it was ghost hunting. So I think it's kind of a hobbyist thing, and they're out there hunting. They're there to prove. So they've already come in basically saying, "I think ghosts exist, and I'm going to prove that they do." So
Hmm.
that's a little bit of a difference where I see it when you move into a paranormal investigator. The way I've always seen that is you are an investigator. You don't have a hypothesis or you don't have a belief that ghosts exist necessarily. You might
Right.
have a hypothesis that they exist and you're going to test certain things,
Hmm.
or you may collect the data and see where it takes you. So you go into it not truly having a firm mindset that ghosts do exist. Now, I will admit that I think that line's getting blurred these days, and people may disagree with me only because people are trying to make themselves look more credible. So they're
Hmm.
using terms like they term themselves a paranormal investigator when in reality they might just be a ghost hunter. And it is all about words and how you want to define them. But to take that ghost hunting where you're just doing it as a hobby and maybe you just got into it and you're just learning, how do you take that up to the next level? How do you become a paranormal investigator? What do you have to do? And
Yeah.
that's a real difference. And I think that takes a lot of self-educating. It takes a lot of learning from other people. It takes a lot of going into things with an open mind, looking at everything, not just the potential for it to be a ghost, but it could have a natural explanation. It could have a psychological explanation. It could be environmental. What is it? And I think a paranormal investigator really looks at these things really seriously and in depth and tries to figure out what's really going on because they're investigating. They're not
Yeah.
hunting, they're investigating. And they're looking into something that may or may not be paranormal. It's a claim of the paranormal, so they're in there looking at it. So I don't know, but do you have any thoughts on what a paranormal investigator is compared to a ghost hunter? I mean, you named a couple of them, the seriousness and the amount of time that you've been in the field. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess I've seen people have been in the field for, 15, 20, 25 years and they haven't progressed much. So there's got to be a difference to where you go from ghost hunting to paranormal investigator. Then we'll get into parapsychology as we move along here tonight.
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't think there really is much of a difference between a ghost hunter and a paranormal investigator. Is it a step up from being a ghost hunter? Sure, I think it is a little bit of a step up, but I think it's like you said, it's more of a seriousness of nature of getting into investigations and taking a look at the bigger picture. And it gets more in depth because you're not just investigating a public ghost hunt that's made for just purely for the public. You're going out there and you're actually, if you are doing like a private home investigation, there's definitely a more seriousness, um, you know, to take on, and more responsibility. I think when you're an investigator, you have a lot more responsibility in your lap because I think, um, because you are taken more seriously as an investigator, that you should have more responsibility. And with that, you got to be more careful too, because we always talk about the unpredictable risks and dangers that are involved in private home investigation, and not just private homes, but in any investigation. There's, risks, unknown risks, and dangers that you can walk into anywhere. Um, but I think, yeah, I think having years and years experience, but applying what you've learned as far as literature of who you learned from, how you've learned, where you've learned from, then I can definitely say that, you're at that level of being an investigator. But I think you need to apply everything to what you've learned, to the investigation. I think you should go into it, not. I mean, you can have your own personal belief, and having your own personal belief that you believe in ghosts is fine. But if you leave that out of your investigation because you're so-called quote unquote investigating a claim, you shouldn't go in with your belief investigating that claim. You just should go in investigating that claim, and that's where I think the difference is between a ghost hunter and an investigator, because you have these claims that are given by these locations that are reported to have these claims, and that person's investigating those claims.
Yeah, when the first time I really thought about this, and Jen and I had put it in our book in 2007. There was a difference. Everybody was calling themselves ghost hunters, and it may have been because of the TV show. It was so popular at the time.
Sure.
But then you got Ghost Adventures, and you got Paranormal Lockdown, and then you get all these other shows. But
Which
back
was
in the day,
canceled, by the way, which I'm very sad about.
I kind of missed that one. I think I watched it once. So, but yeah, I back then I think there was a difference. Everybody called themselves ghost hunters, and I saw the people that were trying to break away to be more serious and be more research oriented and approach it from a more of an investigative and scientific level. They
Hmm.
were trying to differentiate themselves, and they called themselves paranormal investigators. But I think what's happening is there's people that want more credibility, and obviously, to make yourself more credible, you want to go with the more recent term and the things that people look at and say, oh yeah, they know what they're talking about. So I've seen a lot of people move into that paranormal investigator term for themselves and their groups, which it's
Right.
fine.
Yeah,
But
that's
as you
fine.
say, it's not really what it's not how long you've been in the field, it's what you do with it. It's do you
Exactly.
take the information, do you learn from it, and do you move on?
Yeah.
But I just think, and even the skeptical community, they'll call them amateur ghost hunting
Hmm.
groups or whatever they call. I forget the exact terminology, but they will refer to them as amateur ghost hunters, which I think there's amateur ghost hunters. I think all of us are obviously some level of amateur because we don't have degrees in this, and we're not professionals. Well, we can be professionals. I'll take that back. We can be professionals, but you're not you're not degreed, and you're not any certain level unless you, like you talked about when we get into parapsychology. But it
Right.
looks like ghost hunting is kind of where everybody starts. It's kind of fun. You go out, you're hunting ghosts, you go to these haunted places, and to me it's not a matter of just how long it is, but what you do with the information. And if
Right.
you're a true ghost hunter, I still think the difference is people are out there hunting for evidence to confirm their beliefs.
Right. Right. No, I
And
agree with you.
however, I think part of that is starting to slide into the paranormal investigator arena as well.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
know when we've looked at, starting a different group, uh, Jen and I looking and getting more research based and dealing more with life after death and all the phenomena related to that, we really we really thought long and hard about, do we want to say we're paranormal investigators or what do we want to say we are? Because at least in academia, there is now a stigma against paranormal investigators. It used to be
Really.
against ghost hunters. Now I see it more or less paranormal investigators, and even the way they do things, and they publish things, and it just the academic world looks at it and goes, okay, well, the term paranormal isn't really, we don't want to use that all that much anymore. So they stick
Hmm.
to parapsychology, or they use things like anomalous cognition, or, survival of consciousness. You don't even hear paranormal in the academic community all that much, unless they're going to usually say something somewhat derogatory about it.
Just a little.
Yeah, just a little. So I think it's really, ghost hunting to me is kind of where you start. And yeah, those people are more or less out there looking for stuff to prove their belief that ghosts exist, and that's fine, and they're hobbyists. But I think as you move into paranormal investigator, it's kind of keeping that open mind and looking at the data, and
Right.
putting the years in, and reading and taking classes and learning from people that you can advance yourself.
Yeah. It's
So,
like I said, it's as long as you're applying what you've been taught or what you learned and applying that further and researching and getting like results and what you do with those results, what you do with that data, and you know
right.
how you collect that stuff and how you put it out in public. Um, Question for you, Dave.
Yep.
Now, do you think that being a paranormal investigator is more professional than like the term ghost hunter because it is a little step up from ghost hunter, or do you
Yeah.
think that I mean now professional I use that loosely because it's not a profession. We don't get paid to do what we do. That's just the bottom line. So we can't call it a profession. So I think that's where the argument is with skeptics because it's not a profession. We don't, it's not a career, in this. So, but
Yeah. Yeah,
but
but
we
you
can,
you can bring a level of professionalism to anything you do.
well, that's what I was getting at. Right. So I think professionalism, the word professionalism, not that we're professionals, but by displaying professionalism toward the community and the work that you do and the work that you do with others, I think is the
Mhm.
key important thing.
Yeah, I agree. I do think when you say paranormal investigator, at least there used to be a certain stigma of more professional behavior and more science and more data driven and more investigative technique. I'm
Yeah,
not really sure if it's still that way these days. I mean, I've been kind of a little bit disconnected from the overall ghost hunting paranormal community. Still keep a finger on the pulse, go to things once in a while, but we've moved more into kind of the research and the parapsychology part of it. Not being parapsychologists, but trying to
sure.
push that level of where we're at.
Right.
And when it was a couple of years ago, we made the decision to not do private home investigations and not go to public places unless it's in cooperation with somebody or unless we have a specific research project that we want to do. And the reason we did that is, there's a couple of reasons. We didn't feel like we were learning much anymore, and the cases we're getting and the places we're getting so diluted because so many people were out there doing things, and it just seemed like there was a whole lot of ridiculousness going on in the field, and that line between ghost hunting and paranormal investigating got blurred. But there are people out there that definitely bring a level of professionalism to it, and they tend to not refer to themselves so much as ghost hunters. They try to get into the professional level of the paranormal investigator. So, I mean, it's just kind of my thought, and some people may think different of it, but I think the real cold stop on what people should call themselves is going to be parapsychologist, and we'll get to that after we finish talking about paranormal investigators and ghost hunters.
Sure. Do you think the more serious paranormal investigators should quit calling themselves investigators and maybe um, focus more on the term of maybe calling themselves paranormal researchers, depending on the level of
Yeah, it
what
could be,
they're
could be.
investigating?
I don't. I just. I mean, that's possible. I guess again, there might be little subcategories too, because you could be a paranormal investigator, but a lot of people, and we did this too back in the day. When you go to investigate a location, they're only there once for 4 hours. What are you going to learn once in
Right,
4 hours versus
right.
going back over and over and over again? So there may be a difference between, if you investigate, you might just be there to investigate what's going on at the time and see if anything is happening or you can come up with it. But you might be right. There might be this paranormal researcher, because those are the people that really are going to dig in. They're going
Hmm.
to collect the data. They're going to analyze it. They're going to see if it conforms with other stuff or it doesn't, what other people have found. So, yeah, there might be a level of people saying what research is. Um, because for one example, we used to do the private home things and we didn't go and investigate.
Hmm.
Well, then when we moved into this house in Janesville, where we were there for years, a long time, 24/7. We did nonstop data collection and research. So that to me was a true research project. We were running experiments, we were having people come in, we were testing different things, and we were there a lot. So yeah, maybe there is a difference between investigation and research, because research it takes a lot of time. It's ongoing. It takes a lot of resources. It takes
Right.
a lot of understanding. So you get into a situation where you have this kind of, like we did, almost this paranormal living lab, and we were doing, it was great. It was great. We were there all the time, and that was the first time I think we felt like we really started to at least get a good understanding of what may have been going on there. But it was
Yeah.
nonstop, and we're still
Right.
going through it. So yeah, there was definitely a difference of just investigating that place, but that was a
Right.
full-blown research living lab experience, which, it's too bad we had to leave, but it is what it is. And to me, that really helped us look at it and go, huh, maybe there is something more to this. And maybe just going to a house one time or two times with people, you're not really going to figure things out. So yeah, we definitely, that was a research project for sure.
Yeah. Actually, your wife is in the chat room, so want to say hello to Jen. She's, I guess, listening to the show.
Hello, dear.
Um,
How you
she's
doing?
support she's supporting her man.
Yep. Well, good,
Oh.
good.
So
But yeah, I mean, I
yeah.
still, I think there's a difference. But on the other hand, just because you say you are something doesn't mean you are. I mean, people really need to step back and say, if I say I'm a researcher, if I'm a paranormal researcher, what are you doing?
Hmm.
I mean, okay, they can say I'm researching the history of the house. Okay, that's fine. You're
Right.
researching
Right.
it. But if you're researching it with the understanding of, I'm going to just say that I found out somebody died there and that must be the ghost, not research. I mean,
No.
it's research, but it's not data
Yeah.
driven
Yeah.
conclusions. The way, an
Yeah.
example would be,
Right.
let's say you find out somebody did die in the house and somebody said they've been seeing an old lady. So
Hmm.
let's say you find a picture of the person who lived in the house that died there. If you want to collect data, an example would be, mix that picture of the old lady in with three or four other old ladies in similar outfits and stuff, time period, and then show it to the people who said they saw the apparition and see if they can pick it out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's taking it kind of the next level. Kind of, that was the whole thing of our book, Ghost Hunting, taking it to the next level. Take it to the
Okay.
next level.
Right.
Think about how you can collect data. How can you make it meaningful? Not just, I found a photo and they said there's a ghost and that's it. I mean, you
Hmm.
did some research, but you're not collecting data.
Right. Right.
So there is a
Right.
big difference, and I think it's just it's kind of a mindset and how people approach it. And some people, that's not what they want to do. That's fine,
Right.
but
I mean,
stay out of private homes, and don't be going and talking at colleges, universities, and other places saying that you're a researcher and a parapsychologist.
yeah. Yeah. No, that's way too big different thing. Um, but I think what the problem, Dave, is there's just too many title. Like, the thing is with the paranormal community, anybody can make up a title and just slap it on anybody.
Yeah,
And that's what the skeptics are preying on, because again, it's not a profession. We're not getting paid. It's not a career.
right.
So a lot of people have problems with these people making up any old title just to
Yeah,
make themselves feel important. And I get it. I get that. You know, the thing and the thing is that I do with my team now, I give people sole responsibility of certain things as part of the team,
hmm,
and that right there is okay. But we're not like titling anybody as like, this person's a specialist in this person's a specialist in that, and we're not like giving people like special titles.
hmm.
I just say this person has a role in this person has a role in that, and that's it. Why can't just people be simple?
Yeah, I mean, there can be. I think there can be specialists, people that may focus in on one thing. Like, you might have a tech specialist that all he does or she does is focus on the technology. You might have a photography um, or a videographer that is a professional in their field. You
Sure.
could have a professional scientist or a
Yeah.
psychologist that's part of your team. But I think there's obviously, that does mean there are professionals in the field. They just come from
Exactly.
multidisciplinary perspectives.
Hmm.
So there can be professionals. I mean, hey, the people who look at this stuff and believe and investigate it, and they can be just as professional as skeptics who say, we're professional skeptics, or we're professional, who, whatever their professional is. I'm a psychologist and I think this is ridiculous. Well, there are professionals, but there's actually a hierarchy of responsibility and professionals in this field. I
Hmm.
mean, it's, though people don't think they are, and they make themselves kind of professionals without knowing. But if you put a lot of time, I mean, you look at the amount of time I've put in, and you've put in, and John, and we've been doing this a long time. And not that we know everything, but I think there's a definite level of professionalism above the people who just started out and watch the TV shows and run around cemeteries.
Yeah, yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. Hey, I started out that way. I still love to go walk around a
I
cemetery
think
at night.
we all
Every
started
time
out.
we go to New Orleans, we have to walk around a cemetery. But
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
nothing.
We all have to start somewhere.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think you start running into a problem when you start going into private homes and kind of saying you're a professional and an expert, and then you start teaching and lecturing, and you kind of look at it and go, okay, well, I know we don't know everything, but I know that's not right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just,
It,
and people are going to say, the comments I'm making, they're probably going to say you're arrogant. Well, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be, and I try to be nice,
it,
but I've been in the field a pretty long time, and there's just certain things that you can and can't say. That's just
yeah.
my opinion, though.
No, I agree with you 100%. I wouldn't call it arrogance. I would call it that we just, we simply are just trying to be better people,
Yeah, yeah, yep,
you know?
yep,
We're trying to be, and we're also trying to be more wiser with what we used to know in the past, you know?
yep.
So,
So
but yeah,
anyway,
getting into, which is more of like kind of your background, Dave, because again, this is an area where, like I know a lot about parapsychology just because of the, hanging out with you and learning from you and learning from other people like Dr. Barry Taff and Lloyd Auerbach, reading up on his research, and other, people in the field as well.
right.
Um, but parapsychology has come a long way, but it's been around forever. It's been around way before ghost hunters became a thing and, investigators were a thing. This has been around for so long, and this is what people tend to kind of neglect, I think. And
Yep,
we could even do a whole show on the history of parapsychology. It would
yep,
take up a whole show in itself. Um, because it's been around since the early 1800s, if not even before that.
yep.
But anyway, I
Yeah,
myself, I myself, before we get further into it, I myself, I again, I'm not going to begin to touch on parapsychology. I have two parapsychologists on my team, and yes, they do have a degree in parapsychology because they got degrees overseas. I have Jeffrey Owen Katz, who's he's got a doctorate, he's got a PhD. When he came over from the UK, and he went to school. He actually founded the psychology department of his college, which I think is pretty cool. You can look him up on Wikipedia. He's out there. His bio's there. Um, but that's my point. Like when it comes to parapsychology, you're gonna have a much better list of credentials to back that up.
yeah. I mean, the transition. You could start out. I'm going to transition all the way up to parapsychologist, but you can start out as a ghost hunter. But what they need to do is grow and learn and apply that, and then become a paranormal investigator. But then, how do
Yes.
you become a parapsychologist? Well, as you said, they're degreed people, and they either get an actual master's or a PhD in parapsychology, which is pretty hard to do even today. And back in the day, it was still hard to do. And even if they don't do that, most likely you get a master's or a PhD in psychology or anomalous psychology, and you then do a thesis or a dissertation project, and you do research in the field of parapsychology. I mean, otherwise, or there's people like Dean Radin. He does have a PhD. I mean, he studied everything from psychology to engineering, and he spent most of his life now doing research in the parapsychology field. So people refer to him fairly enough as a parapsychologist.
Yeah.
You look at the Colster Parapsychology Unit at the University of Edinburgh. That's where I took an online class from Dr. Carolyn Watt, an academic level, college level parapsychology class, and it's like, oh, it is college. It's college higher level education. And parapsychologists, I think people need to understand this. They did start out looking at claims of mediums and psychics, but they also spent a lot of time doing spontaneous case investigation, which would be ghosts and hauntings.
Right.
And then over the years, it kind of morphed away from that, and parapsychology became more academic and lab driven. And now, most of it, if there is parapsychologists doing work, they do a lot in the lab, but they also do some field work, and they try to test things like, why do people perceive apparitions? What's their belief system? What's their background? What's their tolerance of ambiguity? What's their personality type? So they're trying to understand why people have these experiences. And ghosts and hauntings aren't the only thing parapsychologists study. They look at extrasensory perception, psychokinesis, and survival. And since we won't bore the audience on ESP and PK tonight, but if you look at the survival, it's not just ghosts and hauntings. It's reincarnation. That's one big one. That's an area that they've done a lot of research in. The University of Virginia Medical School Division of Perceptual Studies, they do a lot of work with reincarnation, but they're also, they look at life after death experiences. They still do somewhat at sometimes look at psychics and mediums, not as much as they used to, but they
But
cover the
they
whole
do,
gamut
yeah.
of anything related to survival. Is there proof that consciousness survives bodily death? And again, if you look at what a parapsychologist really studies and what they do, and then the degrees that they have, to come out and say that you're a parapsychologist when you have none of that, to me, that's insulting to the field of parapsychology.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, have those credentials before you come out and say, you're a parapsychologist. Yeah, a lot of people would be insulted.
Yeah, but it's also just it's a whole. I mean, you're usually talking 4 years of college, at least
Yeah.
3 years for a master's, and if you go on for a PhD, it could be another four. And a lot of those
Hmm.
people also do postdocs, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of time and energy and
It's
money
like
put
eight
into
years of
that.
college.
Yeah, and just to say, I read a lot of books and I'm a parapsychologist. I mean,
No.
and the reason this came up is I'm not going to say the name of the person because somebody said they were that, and that person, I don't know, they may have claimed they were. It's something I've read said they did, and somewhere else, I'm not sure if they did, but it was a TV personality, and people were saying, and I think this person was saying they were a parapsychologist, and it's kind of like, oh, really? Huh? I didn't know that. What's their background and training?
Hmm.
And it ends up being, well, I just read a lot. I buy a lot of books and I read a lot. Well, shit. If that's it, I'm going to start calling myself a
Yeah,
parapsychologist.
right.
But
I
I wouldn't do that. And it's just, I think what's happening is, like I said before, there was this progression from ghost hunter to
Yeah,
paranormal investigator, because that sounds more professional,
sure.
to paranormal researcher, like you said. Ooh, that sounds good too. But when everybody else starts doing that, how do you differentiate yourself? Oh, I'm a parapsychologist. And I don't agree with it. And there's at
Yeah,
least two people out there that are fairly well known that claim to be parapsychologists, and they're not.
right.
I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know if I would consider somebody even like, Mike Nichols to be more of a
sure,
parapsychologist,
sure.
because
'Cause
he's,
he does that kind of research.
yeah, and he's done the research. He's taught parapsychology at the university level,
Right,
and even when you ask him, he's like, oh, I don't know if I'm comfortable with people calling me a parapsychologist.
right, right.
And he acknowledges it, and we exchanged some texts about this at one time, and I'm like, well, Mike, you don't I, you're more of a parapsychologist than most people who claim to be. That's for darn sure. But
Yeah,
it's just, to me, it's really, it's not good to kind
no.
of, that would be like, you and I saying, oh, just for the hell of it, I'm gonna say I'm uh, neuroscientist. Why not?
Right, right. Or just for shits and grins, like I've been, I've been studying demonology through the Dominion Ministry, and I've been helping them
Hmm.
with a couple of cases that get thrown our way and stuff.
Right.
They've not been in any way whatsoever. They've not been like demonic cases at all. But like I I'm not gonna go around and turn around and say I'm a demonologist just because I'm studying demonology. You
Yeah.
know, it's just
Anything you do, and if you're going to call yourself, give yourself the title, you really need to do the work.
yeah,
And a lot of these things, parapsychology, that takes some academic training.
right, right.
And just to say you're that because you've read a lot and you want to stand out above all the others, that's not right. I mean, you really,
No,
if you pick up any, and I would, one of the things I like to do is somebody says they're really into parapsychology and they understand it, and they're if they say they're a parapsychologist, one of the things I always ask is, okay, so name at least three major textbooks at an academic level in parapsychology, and it doesn't include whatever Jay and Grant's book is.
oh man.
Yeah,
Was
I don't
yeah,
know. It's just it's the, and you can start asking people, and sometimes, and this has happened where you start questioning people, and you can kind of see you're getting at the root cause of the BS, and they'll
mhm,
bail after a while. And
yeah,
it just call yourself what you are. It's not a big deal.
yeah,
Nobody
that's
cares, but
right.
don't extend it into the academic world.
Yeah, yeah. And the sad part about that is, like, the the person we were referring to, I'm not again, not we're not gonna say the person's name, but, like, we know this person. Like, me especially, like, I've known this person for quite a few years, and they've never came out in public saying that they were claiming to be a parapsychologist. Ever. Like, not once in the entire time that I've ever known this person have I ever heard the word or term parapsychologist ever used to describe, what this person is about. And when I heard that, I was just Dave, I was flawed. I was just like,
And
"Really?
yeah, and
Since when?"
I looked into it a little bit, and there is at least one thing during an interview where they referred to themselves as a parapsychologist, and I'm like, ugh. So it was
Uh,
somebody saying that and then them saying it, and it's just like, oh, you're kidding me.
oh, well, I'm just gonna say that, hey, listen, I know the real you, so, you know, I call bullshit.
Well, there's a
So,
lot of that in the field, a lot of
yeah,
bullshit.
yeah, a lot of
A
bullshit,
lot
that's
of
for
people
sure.
that just overstate who they are and what they've done, and I mean it's kind of funny when I mean the default is, I think there's two defaults when somebody new gets into the field. Sometimes
Yeah,
you hear, oh, I've been involved in the field for 10 years,
yeah,
15, 20.
yeah,
It's like, well,
yeah.
and I've been researching this and I've put stuff out there. It's like, geez, do you know how easy it is to go look up your website? Let's see, it was formed in February 2018.
Oh boy.
It's just kind of
Yeah,
funny. I mean,
yeah,
it's not to criticize people, but it's just don't exaggerate things and try to say you're something you're not to look more credible, because
right.
honestly, people are going to know and you're probably going to get called out, and then you're going to look even less
You
credible than you did starting out.
you got you bottom line is you're gonna look foolish. That's
Yeah.
number one.
Yep.
And, like, the thing that bothers me about that, Dave, is, like alright, so that conversation, I know the conversation that you had,
Yep.
and again, I'll leave that
Well, they didn't respond to it, so
I'll leave
I
that
call it a
out of it.
one-sided conversation.
Well, it definitely was, but my where the point I'm going is there are people who are so gullible into this BS that they're putting out there that they just take whatever they say on TV and run with it, like,
Right.
without doing any homework, any research about that person. They're defending that person because they like the person, or they've worked with the person at an event per se or whatever. You know, just because you've done that doesn't mean you really know that person.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a background check and get their credentials very easily, and there's public information available, with public records, and that you can do a search with, and the truth will come out, and like you said, eventually the truth will come out, and then they're just gonna look like a fool,
Yep. Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. So just be
and the pe
truthful, be honest.
and the people who defended them are gonna look foolish.
Yep, that's true.
So, I mean, I don't know. But anyway, that's really what got me and Dave into talking about this topic, and like Dave said, maybe it's good we revisit this topic because it's been a while, and I haven't really heard this topic being mentioned at all in the community. So, if anybody has you know, any thoughts at all, please feel free to give us a shout and let us know what you think about what we're talking about. Which most people could probably figure out what we are talking about, but I don't want to name drop, and
No, we're not
just
gonna we're not gonna do that. That's not what we're
yeah,
about. And
no,
it's just kind of throw it out there and discuss it. And it's interesting. A couple years ago, I started playing around with Google Trends, and I wanted to see, is there a correlation between the terms ghost hunting, ghost hunter, paranormal investigator, and parapsychology? And then I looked at the number of TV shows that were going on for the same years. And it's really interesting. And I'll have to dig it up and try to post it again on our Fifth Dimension Facebook page. I think it's somewhere buried in our paranormal research group page. That when you looked at it, you saw the number of paranormal TV shows go up. The search volume for parapsychology just bottomed out. And of
oh
course,
wow,
ghost hunting and paranormal investigator increased significantly. So
sure,
now it looks like it's leveled out a little bit, and maybe it's time to take another look at that. But it was just, to me, it was pretty impressive that, boy,
mm-hmm.
parapsychology just get that the hell out of the way. We're looking at ghost hunting now, and
Yeah,
it really, as the number of TV shows increased, the search volume for parapsychology dropped off significantly. But it's kind of funny now to see people trying to edge their way back into it because it sounds really scientific and really
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Which, gotta be honest, even in the mainstream academic world, parapsychology isn't all that well accepted.
right, right, right,
So be
right,
careful of what you wish for, people.
yeah. Your wife said in the chat room that some people think that watching the paranormal show is research, and she doesn't agree with that, but seems to be the consensus of what's going on, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. Of course, you never disagree with the wife, but no, I do. I can sometimes. No,
It's
but
okay to
that's a real
disagree and not
that
to agree to disagree.
no, it's true though. I think people watch that and think they're either doing they think what they're doing on the show is research, and
Hmm.
by watching the show is research and education. The only time I've ever heard of those TV shows being used for research is to take a look at them to see what they're doing and how it compares to what's really going on out there. I mean, that's an interesting research project, but what they claim they're doing on those shows as research, it's not research. I mean, ask my wife. She is a producer for television. She knows how that works. It's
Hmm.
entertainment. If
Yeah,
you are not entertaining, nobody's going to watch it, and you're not going to get
exactly.
ratings. And I'll tell you one thing: you can ask her if you get somebody on there like a Lloyd Auerbach or a Dean Radin or when Michael Persinger was alive or James Haran or any of these other parapsychologists or people involved in the field, those shows will never last
No,
because nobody cares.
right,
I
right.
mean, I tell you the truth, when I sit down, I watch TV, I want to be entertained. I'm not, sometimes I want to think, but not all that often. So no, she
Yeah,
makes a good point though, that what they're doing is not research.
yeah.
It's just not. At best, it's investigating. At
Hmm.
best.
Yeah, sure. Um, anybody could look up public records. You go to the historical society. You could go to the town hall. Go to
Yep.
go to anybody could do that.
Yeah. I mean,
Doesn't
but
doesn't
that is
take
that can.
a scientist to do that.
Yeah, but that is also part of research. I mean, investigating things and researching things, that is part of it. I mean, you do
Yeah.
when people do say there might be an apparition that's been seen here if somebody used to live here and died here, that you do have to research that. And the way you do that is to dig into it. I mean,
Yeah,
historical records, history,
yeah,
people do historical research,
yeah,
sure. But to me, there's just still a difference between investigating and research. Investigating is you're trying to collect information and come to a conclusion and trying to look into it. But on the other hand, research is really collecting data, analyzing it, seeing where it takes you, and then forming a hypothesis, testing it, and then seeing if it holds up or not. So there's I'm a little more hardcore when it comes to the difference between investigation and research.
sure, sure. Um, we have another listener in the chat room. Just want to shout out to Mary Lou. She's a good friend of mine from California. She's in there. She said she was listening, so I'm gonna say hello to her. Can't believe we already have 10 minutes left of the show, Dave.
Geez, that flew by. I guess
I
it
know, right?
doesn't take long when you get on a rant.
Yeah, right. Um, but oh, there's so many rants that we can.
So many
we
rants,
sh-
so little time.
yeah, right. So, anyway, those who are joining us late, we're talking about the differences between a ghost hunter, a paranormal investigator, and a parapsychologist, which they're, to me and Dave, there's some pretty huge differences between the three. If you missed our episode, you can always go back. I share the link on our Facebook page, and YouTube puts it up immediately. So if you go to our YouTube channel, look up the Fifth Dimension Live video podcast. Don't forget to hit the red. There's a gray bell in the top right hand corner. Subscribe to our show. It's absolutely free. We got some new subscribers this week, Dave.
Cool.
So
Making
yeah,
progress.
keep it coming, guys. Really appreciate that. So
And
you know,
we'll take suggestions for topics too.
yeah, definitely. We're gonna have guests from time to time. Not all the time, but Sundays are tough for some people. So yeah, we'll have interesting guests here and there, and yeah, we thought this would be a great topic to revisit because I haven't heard anything about it in a while, and it would be interesting, Dave, to see what the statistical search is on that, like what you mentioned.
Yeah, I'll have to rerun that just to kind of see where it's at.
Yeah,
I'll have to find
yeah,
somewhere that lists all the paranormal shows that are on too to see if I know a lot of them have faded away, but seems to be more that come out and fade away quickly. So that'll take a little bit of time. But yeah, the Google Trends part of it, it should be pretty easy to run that again. I was floored. I'll put up the old one I did on our site there on Facebook, and people can take a look at it. I just got to dig it out of our paranormal research group page. But I was really surprised. I was like, wow, look at that! As the shows went up, parapsychology down.
yeah, yeah,
But now it's
yeah,
inching back. I have a feeling. So
yeah.
I don't know. That's just my take on it. I mean, to wrap up my comments, it's I think there's ghost hunters, paranormal investigators, which there may be another category moving into paranormal researchers, and then parapsychologists. And there's distinct differences. I think with ghost hunters, everybody starts out there. You're kind of getting involved. You're looking at. You're having fun. You're going to places, and you're really looking for an experience. Seems to be like a lot of what they do, but I mean, they can take it seriously. There's some serious ghost hunters that make a whole
Oh
hobby
yeah,
career, almost hobbyish career out of it, and go everywhere they can. But then, get into the paranormal investigator and research. You got to step it up a notch. You got to up your game. You got to take what you've learned before and apply it and really do something different with it. And if you're going to do research, that's collecting data. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. You have to analyze it, form a hypothesis, and kind of see where it takes you. And then parapsychology, we've talked about that's at the academic level. You need to have some advanced degrees and training and spend a lot of time in the field,
yeah,
not the field, but doing research in the lab and or the field.
hmm
And that's a whole different level. So
yeah, yeah.
that's kind of a
Um,
summary of where I'm at with it.
sure. Yeah, so my closing thoughts for the show, I'm gonna just like agree with Dave 100% on that. The only thing I would add to my closing statements is, what are some things that people can do to maybe, you know, back up their credentials more and get more credibility is go to school and get a degree in psychology. Um, and like Dave said, go out in the field and, maybe, you know, go for a doctorate degree if you can. You know, if you're young, if you're 16 years old and you're thinking about college and you're into the paranormal and you want to go further into the paranormal as you get older, and if you can do it while you're in college, like get that PhD, then travel across overseas and see if you can find a university that offers a degree in that field. Um, and it's just better your background. Just learn. Not just reading books, but maybe you can get degrees in other things. Get a degree in as a historian, get a degree in psychology, and there's so many things. You could go to photography school, you could go to videography school. There's so many things that you can learn and do, and up
Mm-hmm.
your A game, to apply to being an investigator and going that step further. Like Dave and his wife Jen, when they wrote that book, what's that next level? Well, those are some of the next level that you can take to your investigation.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, some people, and I agree with you, Matt. Some people just can't afford to do that, or it's not the right time in their life to go get another degree. But there's a lot of online stuff you can do now too. I mean, I'd have to look and see if Dr. Carolyn Watt is still doing her online parapsychology class. That's an excellent class to take. There was the massive online class of parapsychology by Carlos Alberto and his wife. They've done that and brought in all the people in the field. It's a really good experience, and it's free. You can read journal articles. You can try to keep up on some of the academic work. So there's a lot of things you can do to up your game. And I get it. You get a certain point in life. Nobody's going to go and when they're 45, 50 years old and, hey, I'm going to go get a PhD in parapsychology. Now, would I like to do that? I'd love to do that, but it's not going to happen. But there's ways to keep up on the academic side of it and to up your game and kind of uh, become better at what you do and know more about the field.
Dave, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm if I get on TV, I'm just gonna go ahead and call myself a parapsychologist.
I'm going to have to hang up on you, Matt.
I'm joking, of course.
Well, just be prepared for the ball busting that's coming.
Oh man, I had
uh,
to do that.
that
I
would be an
couldn't hold back.
interesting show.
Oh
Oh,
man.
Matt, you're killing me.
All right. I had to throw that in there.
uh,
All right. So if you guys enjoyed our show, again, your feedback is always welcome. We welcome constructive criticism. All hate mail could go to the fifth dimension radio show at gmail.com. And
Perfect.
yeah, so I don't know. Any more thoughts? I think that's it.
No, I think that was good. Good discussion, and it's been a while since I've talked through those three different types of people in the field, and I think it was a good discussion, and kind of keep my eyes and ears open and see what I hear and see out there.
Yeah. If we do have a guest, the best way to find out about our upcoming guests on the show is please subscribe to our show on the YouTube channel, and also keep up to date with our Facebook page because I post all the information about our show on those two pages on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. So please, that's important. If you don't want to miss out on any episodes, topics, guests, that's the way to do it. And I think that's pretty much it. We're at the bottom of the show. You know, um, Walking Dead is coming on in an hour. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night, and
Yep,
don't do anything that I wouldn't do. That
which
doesn't leave a
isn't
lot of room.
much. All right, everybody, have a good night.
All right, have a great night, everybody. Thanks for being in the chat, Jen and Mary Lou. You guys take care, and thanks again for listening to everybody.
Yep,
All
thank
right,
you.
all right, night, guys.